Today we're going to be talking about Google. This is a stock that peaked at over $200 per share back in February. However, since that time period, it is down by over 25%. And more specifically, we're going to dive into Google's earnings announcement that they're expected to report on April 24th. We'll also go over some news around NVIDIA, news around Google and their monopoly cases that they have going on, and then I'll give my opinion on where I think Google is headed over the next couple of years. And as always, thank you guys so much for the continued support on the channel. If you want to know the best way to simply support the channel, it is by dropping a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe while you're down there. As I mentioned, Google is down significantly in the last few months. And for that reason, it has been one of the companies that I have added to my portfolio significantly in just the last few weeks. And what I find very interesting about Google is now over the last year, the stock is down by almost 3%. And if you go back to the highs of 2021, when the stock market was roaring, till now, the stock is basically flat. And a lot of companies from 2021 until now have either flat or even declining revenue over that time period. However, for Google, if you go back to 2021, they were bringing in around $260 billion of trailing 12-month revenue. They have since increased that number by almost $100 billion to $350 billion of trailing 12-month revenue. And their bottom line shows an uptrend over the last 3 years as well. If you go back to 2021, they had $5.61 of trailing 12-month EPS. That has since grown to over $8 of EPS. And I think a famous quote from Ben Graham is very important here, because as you look at these numbers, it seems like Google stock should be much higher than where it was trading just a couple of years ago. However, in the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. In the long term, it is a weighing machine. And currently, Google is going through a lot of voting. They are having a lot of attacks from the FTC claiming that the company is a monopoly. A Virginia court recently ruled that Google willfully acquired and maintained monopoly power in the sale of ads on independent websites. And this compounds on a decision made back in August from a court that stated that Google had an illegal monopoly on the search business. And Google responded to the Virginia court ruling with the following statement: "We won half of this case and we will appeal the other half. The court found that our advertiser tools and our acquisitions, such as DoubleClick, don't harm competition. We disagree with the court's decision regarding our publisher tools. Publishers have many options and they choose Google because our ad tech tools are simple, affordable, and effective." These two decisions could be very important for Google's future and shape how the company looks over the next 5 to 10 years. However, in my opinion, I don't think they are going to go to that extent. I think that Google could pay some fines, and that may be the extent of these cases. However, if you look at competition across the advertising market, it has ramped up significantly in the last few years. You have Microsoft doubling down on ChatGPT and trying to build out Bing even further. You also have Amazon and their advertising business. You have Meta. Meta is the number 2 advertiser in the market, and they provide a certain type of advertising that is a little bit different than Google's, but it still meets the needs of businesses. So at the end of the day, there is a ton of competition in the advertising market. And this competition could actually get even worse over the coming years if Amazon is able to acquire TikTok. They would obviously be looking to use TikTok to advertise their products on the platform, and that could take away from advertising on Google. In my opinion, if Google is able to accurately show these threats to the courts, they will rule in their favor. I think that the main thing they need to show is that there is plenty of competition in the advertising industry as a whole. Even though if you look specifically at the search business, yes, Google probably has a monopoly. However, people are not just searching on Google. They're going on different platforms and trying to find different ways of finding information, not just through Google search. You even have ChatGPT and other things that are all disrupting their market. At the end of the day though, investors are very focused right now on the short term, and they're going to be paying very close attention to Google's earnings coming up on April 24th. And current bottom line estimates have Google putting up $2.01 of EPS in this quarter. The low estimate is $1.90. The high estimate is $2.20. A year ago, they put up $1.89. But it's important to keep in mind that Google has beaten every quarter for the last 4 quarters. In March of last year, they beat analyst expectations by almost 25%. In June, they beat by 2.4%. They beat by almost 15% in September and then 1.2% in December. And for revenue estimates, analysts are expecting the company to grow their top line by almost 11%. A year ago, they had revenue of $80.54 billion. However, in this current quarter, they are expecting Google to put up $89.2 billion. And the reason I specifically have been loading up on Google comes down to valuation. Out of all the big tech companies right now, Google has the lowest valuation. Their forward P ratio is currently sitting at a 17.27. Just a few months ago, they were trading at a 24 forward PE ratio. They're expected to bring in around $10 of EPS in 2026. That means that if this company over the course of the next year trades up to a valuation of around a 24 forward PE ratio, the stock price could shoot all the way up to $240 per share. And ultimately, that represents around a 60% upside from the current stock price. And I'm not just talking about Google stock. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. This is the YouTube portfolio, and right now it has a value of $55,676.70. And Google is the largest position that I have in this portfolio with a current market value of around $9,600. I'm currently down almost 4% and I hold a total quantity of shares of 64. Alongside Google, I hold Supermicro, Microsoft, Visa, AMD, SoFi, Alibaba, Palantir, Apple, and PayPal. And out of my positions, I plan to continue adding to Google. I'm also interested with AMD. AMD's gone through a little bit of a downturn here in the last week or so. It's now sitting at $87.60. If it continues to fall below 80, I will look to add to my position. I also think PayPal would be an interesting one to build out a little bit more because I currently only have $600 in this stock, and I think there's probably around $30 of upside with the current stock price of around $61. And I have plenty of cash sitting on the sidelines with a current cash pile of almost $25,000. And as I mentioned, one of the stocks that I'd like to add more into is AMD. AMD is a recent add to the portfolio, and I'd like to add more if it drops below that $80 mark. And there's the potential we could see it fall down there because the US is looking to further restrict exports of semiconductors. On Tuesday night, the US government informed NVDA that it would require a special license for exports of its H20 chips made specifically for the Chinese market. And obviously, NVIDIA could come in and even AMD could come in and try and apply for this special license. However, no licenses for GPU shipments into China have ever been granted. And this is just another step in the back and forth we have seen between the US government and China. This dates all the way back till August 2022 when the Biden administration banned some exports of NVIDIA's A100 and H100 chips. NVIDIA each and every time has made modifications to their chips to go around this ban. However, each and every time the US government has stepped back in and put a new ban in place. And the newest one is on this H20 chip. And current estimates from the company are indicating that these changes will cause a bottom line hit to NVIDIA's numbers of $5.5 billion. And analysts are projecting that this will equate to a top line hit of around $10 billion. And if we continue to see this back and forth between the US and China over the coming weeks, I think AMD could easily go back below that $80 mark. But as I always say, don't buy a stock just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are doing your own research and looking into companies that meet your risk tolerance as well as your time horizon. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below and subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your day. And for the joke of the day, what sounds like a sneeze and is made of leather? Check the comments down below for the answer. Thanks for watching.